Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys. This is a podcast for me and my friend David. David, hey.
Hello.
Hello. We sit and we talk for an hour or so about either science fiction or horror movies that we feel are relevant in some way, good or bad. And we are happy that you've joined us today. What's going on with you this week, David? Anything?
No, nothing much. I was traveling this week, but that gives me airport time, of course. Thank you, American Airlines. And so I downloaded and got to watch the new season of Black Mirror. I always, greedily await that because I love the way he tells stories and the way he does it. Except this time, I was disappointed in Black Mirror. So all of you haters out there who really loved it, please tell me why, so I understand.
David Horton pulls no punches.
I'm just saying, it's just the American Airlines of new science fiction trilogies. No, it had three unique concepts. He always delves with this, technology gone amok, or how we deal with it, or how it manifests in our lives. And all three of the ideas were great. But the first one was probably the best of the trio. They only did three this season. They went back to the original. Black Mirror's been around. I think this is the fifth season. So the first two seasons.
Do you think that has something to do with that movie that came out? Like they ran long making an episode and just decided to release a movie in 3 episodes, or because it was kind of a weird release, wasn't it?
Yeah, Bandersnatch came out Christmas time, sort of thing. And yeah, I think maybe it was the 4th episode of this intended season.
Oh, okay.
But again, it just seems odd. The first 2 years they were a British series, so they both only had 3 episodes each.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 seasons. Then it was essentially picked up by Netflix. And Netflix Americanized it a little bit, but not much, which was good. But they did, I think, 8 episodes, and last year they did 6 episodes, and now this year they're only doing 3 or 4 if you include Bandersnatch. But they just, what's always been cool about it is he explores these dynamics and doesn't let up on it. He takes it in places you don't expect it to go. And all 3 of these stories were just so predictable and so just kind of, okay, cool, fine. So very disappointed, especially, I know you're dying to see it, Tim, but the Miley Cyrus episode, ooh, what a winner that was, let me tell you.
I kind of like Miley, just for her rebellious nature. I'm not really into her as an artist, but my husband Dennis is. I've often said that she's his spirit animal. And that if you knew him, you would know that is not true, but it is really, really funny. And he does follow her and watch her because he likes to see what she's up to.
Oh yeah. And again, it's one of those episodes where he treats it as a pseudo comedy, which he's done in the past seasons of a couple of episodes. But it doesn't really do anything that you don't see coming a mile away, and just go, okay, so that was that, huh? Yeah.
So it's gotten trite.
So that's what I've been doing. Just being a grumpy old man and not liking American Airlines or
Yeah.
Here.
I started to throw a little caveat in there that for people out there that didn't know that you are also a grumpy old airport man. For those of us that are personal friends of David's Facebook page, we get to see him bitch about airlines rather frequently, especially American airlines.
Yes. Well, I would much prefer, the preferred airline of all of Georgia, Delta. So,
yeah,
to what I usually get in America.
Georgia.
What about you? What have you been doing? Hopefully not watching Black Mirror or riding in on America.
No, neither. I'm still watching Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I haven't finished that. But the thing that is on my mind this week is, and this of course will air later, so people bear with us if this is old news by the time you hear it. The trailer for Doctor Sleep dropped this week or last week.
Yes.
And it confirmed a lot of things that people have been speculating. Stephen King is notoriously objected to the Stanley Kubrick film The Shining, which in its own right is a classic film amongst the world, I guess. I was going to say America, but pretty
Yeah.
much the world. And mainly because it took some liberties with killing a character that did not die in the book, and casting of Jack Nicholson was very controversial for King. He said it was the wrong choice. Anyway, so a lot of people have been speculating whether or not this sequel is going to be, in fact, a sequel to Stephen King's book or a sequel to the movie The Shining. And Mike Flanagan, who did The Haunting of Hill House, which we liked very much, is the
Yes.
director. He basically said both. It's going to be a sequel to the book and to the movie. And as you've noticed in the trailer, really cool recreations of the set and
Oh, the
aspects
whole
of the
tone,
first film.
lighting, everything, very, very awesome. Because I think we even mentioned it in Hill House when we did that. One of Flanagan's big inspirations and one of his favorite artists was Kubrick. So that makes sense that he's kind of paying homage to him all the way through it. Yeah, the
Mhm.
trailer looked really good.
Yeah,
Um,
and I have read the book, and the book has moments that harken back to the original story, with him as a child in the hotel and the ghost. But the story of the book itself is an entirely different monster. It's about well, I won't go into details, but it's its own story. It's not just about the hotel or The Shining. However, they're playing it up in the commercial, I guess, or the trailer to get people in seats. And I don't know how he's going to do this, which is kind of, I guess, some of the magic. They did show the film to both Stephen King and the Stanley Kubrick estate, and they have both
hmm
approved of it. And Mike Flanagan said there was a sit down meeting or a call with Stephen King in the beginning where where he told him what he was going to attempt to do, and King gave him his blessing. So it's surprising, and I can't wait to see how he pulls it off, especially because there are drastic differences in the book and in the movie.
Uh-huh.
But like I
hmm
said, the new book is a different monster, so maybe they won't dwell too much on it.
Well, I think it'd be neat. And, Flanagan, we talked about it during Hill House that it was interesting how he modernized, updated, used the source material as an inspiration, but then took it much farther. So it might be interesting to see how he does this, using let's say, for example, the story from Doctor Sleep, but the aesthetic of the movie. So
Hmm.
it looks like Kubrick is filming the sequel to, the Shining.
Yeah, and just leave
So it might
Halloran
be
out
interesting.
altogether. And you could do that. I mean, if you don't mention the character of Halloran, you don't know whether or not he lived or died in either property. So they could easily avoid it that way too.
Right.
But
And just focus on Danny or
mhm.
whomever. So,
But Wendy
uh,
should be in there. It'll be interesting if they have somebody cast that looks like Shelley Duvall. Or if it is Shelley
oh yeah,
Duvall. Wouldn't that be weird?
because she would be the single mom, right?
Right.
Who raised him or whatever. Yeah, I haven't read the book, so
Well, she would be
so
old,
I
but
will.
and there's a little bit of liberties with age, I believe. I think he
Hmm.
would actually be a little older than Ewan McGregor, but that's suspension of disbelief. That's not a big deal, really. So,
Yeah, and Ewan gets to do his American accent again, so
hmm
we'll get to hear that.
yeah. Speaking of which, I cannot wait to watch him in the third season of what is that show I like, Fargo. I think he's probably doing
Yes,
an American accent in that, and he plays twins. So,
interesting.
digression.
Yeah, that's the one you've recommended to me, and I still have not watched it. I still
It's
have not
next on my
watched.
list. As soon as I finish Ash, I'm going to do the third season of Fargo because that show knocks my socks off.
And it just keeps changing every season, right?
It
They
does.
do
It's
new
like the
stuff.
same locale, and there can be loose connections, but it's not really a sequel per se. Any
So I
season.
wonder if they'll take that approach with Castle Rock. You think they will? It'll be similar but not sort of thing.
Oh, you're going there.
I don't. What? What?
Well,
Is it a bad place to go?
I was just thinking, wow, we're running a little long with this side talk. But have you seen what they're doing? That who one of the main characters is?
No, no, I haven't read
Oh,
anything about Castle Rock coming up.
then one of the main characters is going to be a young Annie Wilkes. And if I am not mistaken, she wasn't even in Castle Rock. I think that story was set somewhere else. So they're taking liberties there.
No, he was
Um,
in the Rocky Mountains.
yeah,
Remember?
that's what I was thinking. She was up in the mountains somewhere.
But remember, the reason she was up there was she was hiding because she was a Doctor Death nurse. She was a nurse who had been killing people in
Killing
hospitals all over the
babies.
country.
She was killing
Killing
babies.
babies. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe this is when we get to meet her as
Well,
a young
I think
baby
it
killer
is,
or
and
whatever.
so I guess instead of Alan Pangborn, this season the loose connection to Stephen King will be Annie Wilkes, interwoven in and out of whatever story they choose to tell. So
Well, as long as Jackie Torrance is in it, I'll be happy.
no,
No.
no, she's in Doctor Sleep.
um,
No, just kidding.
oh, great.
uh,
Okay, so well, let's press on. That's what we've been doing, but I'm sure people clicked on this podcast to hear what we're going to talk
it
about,
probably
sort of
so.
thing.
Maybe we should do another podcast.
We should. We'll just cut this one and do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
This one's in your
so
territory this week.
it is. It is this week, gentle listeners. We are doing a film by Danny Boyle called Sunshine. It came out in 2007. It has a great cast. It has Cillian Murphy and Chris Evans, Rose Byrne, Michelle Yeoh's in it. And a brief synopsis is in order for those of you who haven't seen it or are interested in seeing it. You can listen to the synopsis, then go see it, then come back to the podcast because we will spoil the bejesus out of it like we always
Yeah.
do.
Big time.
Basically, it's set in the not too distant future, literally not too distant. So it's like 2057 or 2058, something like that. So not too
Mm-hmm.
distant at all. The Earth, global warming, despite what some people may think, is true and has happened. And the Earth's sun is basically dying, which spells the end of humanity. And we pick up our story aboard the ill-fated, terribly named Icarus II, as it is en route to the sun to deliver a thermonuclear payload to essentially reboot or restart the sun. They are the second mission. The first mission has failed, and they don't know why. So they're on their way there as the second, the last, the last hope for humanity kind of thing. It's 8 men and women, astronauts, physicists, doctors, and they get into trouble when they hear a distress call and decide what to do about it, and there are catastrophic results for literally everybody in it.
Suicide mission.
But it wasn't intended to be.
It wasn't intended to be. No.
It keeps saying at the beginning, even Yo's character, who's essentially the botanist, I guess, she even says, now we have in our tanks enough to make halfway back home. And they'll generate more as they start to go home, sort of thing. So they've kind of calculated it. As a science, and I will say as the science fiction guy, as a science fiction film, this has some really, really good points and some really, really bad points.
Mm-hmm.
As far as science fiction goes. As far as storytelling goes, I honestly, I wasn't a big fan. I didn't think it was that great a movie. It was okay. But it has some like huge plot holes and stuff. What did you think of it? Because you're the one that originally suggested it, ironically.
I think the movie is, and from what I've learned since doing a little bit of research, it was a relatively lower budget than I thought, and I think it looks really good for a movie that didn't have a huge budget. I think there are moments of it that are just visually stunning. I really like the cast. I'm not. Is it Cillian or Killian Murphy?
It may be Cillian.
because
Or
he's
Killian.
Irish, so I just assumed it was Killian.
That
Um,
makes sense.
I like
Killian.
him a
So yeah,
lot.
that's cool.
It is his second time teaming up with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, who wrote it. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Garland. He wrote 28 Days Later as well, but he also
Mm-hmm.
wrote another movie that you really love called Ex Machina.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That
And
that's an incredibly good science fiction movie.
yeah, and a movie called Annihilation, which I have not seen. But
That is not an incredibly good
I,
science
okay.
fiction movie.
Every time I think of
Well,
it, I
it's
think of it.
interesting.
It seems like it's a young adult thing, so I always kind of avoid it.
Well, sort of. It's more along the lines of a cheap knockoff of Arrival. That's kind of the way I think of it
Oh,
because
okay.
it's that same kind of thing of I've lost love or I have a personal relationship that's endangered by this alien and we have to figure it out and we don't know what this unseen force is. Blah blah blah.
So
So
it's kind of like back in the '80s when Leviathan and that other movie, Deep Star,
deep
Deep,
Deep Star Six,
something like that. Yeah.
uh,
It's like, oh wait, aren't these the same movie? No, they have different casts.
right. Or like Meteor and Deep Impact, when they both came out,
And
that sort of
Armageddon.
thing. Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, and
yeah.
Armageddon.
Uh,
Uh, well, it's interesting that you said that because I did not know that about the author or the screenplay
mhm.
writer, but this entire cast is kind of woven together in unique ways. Like Benedict Wong is also in Annihilation,
Uh-huh.
but he's also in Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
which so is Hirokazu Sanada, and then you got Chris Evans, who's in Avengers,
Right.
and Benedict Wong is in Avengers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird the way they all. Oh, and so is Sanada. Sanada's actually in Avengers too.
Actually,
Um,
I was reading somewhere, and I don't think I made a note of it. We're already jumping to casting, but there's like 6 or 8 of them are all in superhero movies now. I mean, because Cillian Murphy played the villain in the Dark, not the Dark Knight, but the one with
Batman
directors.
Begins.
Yeah, Batman Begins. He plays the Scarecrow in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not just Marvel,
and
it's DC and Marvel, but they're both. I mean, all of these cast members, like you said, Benedict Wong is in Doctor Strange.
well, like Michelle Yeoh probably started it because she was in Crouching Tiger, which was Japanese chopsaki, but she still was like a superhero in it.
Right,
But she's in Guardians of the Galaxy, so another superhero movie.
right.
Um,
And Chris Evans was in Fantastic Four and Avengers and Captain America. I mean, he was in a bunch of them for sure.
yeah, the cast for this is all very, very good. The only one I think that is the Veronica Cartwright of this particular or of this particular movie is Rose Byrne,
Okay.
who I just remember from like Neighbors and like Insidious. She's always the scared, heartfelt one, which is what she is in this one too.
I know her
So,
best for Damages, that Glenn Close show.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that had a great first season.
it
That
sure
was good.
did. And then
But
what
this whole
happened?
cast is really strong, really, really good. I like even though there's in screenplay wise, there's somewhat alien-esque. That's a key, but somewhat kind of cliche written. I think they all overcome that
Hmm.
at different times. Michelle Yeoh. Well, see, I have negative things about her in Forward because I really liked her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Hmm.
I've liked her in a couple of other things. She was okay, although I don't like Guardians of the Galaxy. She was okay in that, but she also did Star Trek Discovery, which I really, really, really don't like.
Yeah.
That new series and
Who out there doesn't know that?
ha ha! Thank you so much.
Who out there listening doesn't
Um,
know that David hates Star Trek Discovery?
I do, yes, but all of them very strong, very good. They're good actors and given some unique opportunities in this. It's like I said, this movie hit me as a very hit and miss. It had some great stuff and then some really bad stuff.
Well, and
It
Cliff
had some,
Curtis, the guy that plays Searle, um,
yes.
was the lead or one of the leads on the initial season of Fear the Walking Dead, and they killed him off somewhere around third season, but that was a very hit and miss show, so he's got that in common.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I liked him. I don't dislike him. I think he's a good actor.
I think Hiroyuki Sanada is probably the best actor in the piece,
I'm glad you can
even
say
though his
it.
part is smaller.
Hmm.
Uh, but he plays the captain, but he's
Hmm.
also done some incredible work. I
Yeah.
mean, he was in Lost. I remember him in Lost, but he was also in two, and also in another series, Helix, which I remember watching a little bit of, but don't really remember him in. I remember him in Life, which was a sci-fi movie that came out a couple of years ago that was not good, but he was really good in.
Hmm.
But he also had an incredible part in season 2 of Westworld, and I highly recommend that. Everybody knows I love Westworld anyway, but
I've not
uh,
seen season two, so I didn't know it was in that. Okay.
he has a standalone episode in it, and he's really good in it. And a lot of them have sci-fi pedigree in all of their roles. Like I said, not only in as superheroes, but like I said, Benedict Wong was in The Martian, which is another really good one.
Hmm.
They have horror. Killian is in. I think Killian had a horror movie, but he also had Inception.
Well, he was in 28
Which
Days
was
Later.
another. Oh yeah, 28 Days.
That's the
Yeah, of
first
course,
time I'd
that's
ever
one.
seen him, was when he woke up in that hospital. Speaking of keys,
Yeah,
that's
there
directly
you
from The
go.
Walking Dead or vice versa. I think Walking Dead was after that, so they kind of ripped that off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, total side note. I did read that Walking Dead the comic had a big, huge thing that happened last week or
Oh,
this week.
are we going to divert to another favorite things topic?
No, no, no. We'll do it later. But anyway, I just thought of that.
No, no, I know you're right.
So
You're right.
what did you? So I've kind of given my back and forth on it and stuff, and we can go into detail with keys and stuff. But what did you overall think of this?
Um, I I like the movie. I don't. I'm not. I can't put my finger on it. First of all, I just like this. I like the story. I think it's cool because we've seen movies in the past where in sci-fi land where they go to another planet or they go to another galaxy or they go to the moon. You never see stories where they go to the sun, and you think that's got to be dangerous. So that intrigued me first and foremost. Also, what I think I identify with a lot are elements, and I guess we could say these are keys that it uses that remind me of other films.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, in particular, they all of a sudden take a hard right turn toward the end with a horror element that reminds me a little bit of Event Horizon, where, wait a
A
minute,
little.
yeah, a lot. And then, of course, it's got a sad but happy ending. Everybody dies, but the world lives, so it was worth it.
Right.
So,
I mean,
I mean, there are definitely some plot holes. I have one big ass question that maybe you can answer later. I don't know. I've always been Danny Boyle is one of my favorite directors. He has done some really great movies that I love. I love Train Spotting. I love 28 Days Later. Um, Slumdog Millionaire, I enjoyed. I don't know that I love it. And then like I said, I like this, and it's really cool to see him do different types of movies. He doesn't just do horror movies. He doesn't just do science fiction movies. As a matter of fact, he said he will never do a science fiction movie again. That it is way too much work.
well, I think that's his. I think that's kind of his gag too, which is cool. He doesn't stick to one genre.
Hmm.
He does a lot of different genres and has been recognized for it. I mean, I remember. I mean, there's Slumdog Millionaire. Didn't he? I don't know if he won. I know that movie won an Academy Award.
Yeah, it did.
I can't remember if he did or not, but so he's out there and he does his own thing. He picks his own genres and does them. Um, but I always think that each movie almost has, I don't want to say a gimmick, but it has an aesthetic or a memory, something he creates in it that says, this is going to be my stake in the ground for this movie. You know, in Slumdogs, I think it was that whole recreation of the ghetto and how it was and everything. And Train Spotting, of course, nobody talks about that movie without either the baby or the toilet.
Or the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack too.
127 hours. You know, I can almost not watch that sequence where the guy actually gets loose from the rock
Uh-huh.
because it is just so freaking painful the way he does it.
Uh-huh.
So each one of them had that. In this one, I think it's that whole aesthetic. You know, one of my first comments, like 10 minutes into the movie, the first note I took was, this director really loves eyes. Because eyes are all the way through it.
Yeah.
Reflections in eyes, what they're seeing, eyes back, even down to, like you mentioned in the last act, when it suddenly turns into, we're going to have horror chase.
Mm-hmm.
What people are seeing is distorted and twisted and moved and everything. So much so that I think that's a big failing in the movie. You really start losing it. Once Pinbacker comes on board, you really start losing perspective of where people are, what they're doing, what's happening, because for some reason he doesn't want to show the monster. You know, and I understand, don't show the monster. You know, the more you show the less you show the monster, the scarier it is. But show us something, not just a distorted, weird shadow.
Yeah, that's just really weird, that effect that he does. And I'll go ahead and throw this out here. One of the keys I had was altered states. It reminds me of like
Yes,
things,
I did too. Dang you.
yeah, that
Yep.
Ken Russell
Mm-hmm.
did with William Hurt. I was like, why doesn't he want us to see him? And if he doesn't, then don't show him. Don't show him
Right.
distorted, or with some cheap lens like I would use, on one of my promotional videos. But
Right. And is the character glowing or not? Is he hot? Is he what's happening? What? Is
yeah,
he just a disfigured guy who's been alive for 7 years? I don't get it. I don't
yeah.
get it.
I mean,
I
he's
was
obviously
really
scarred.
confused.
You do see glimpses of his skin, but most of the time you just see blurred, stretched out, um, I don't know, weird angles of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or shadows or weird distortions like through glass or through And I
Hmm.
was going, okay, is that if that's the aesthetic you're going for, fine, but it's not helping me. You know, even when they got near the very last scene when they get in the payload bay and everything, uh, which I'll tell you about later as far as another issue of mine. But
Okay.
the they they're fighting him, but I don't know how or what happens. We see an arm ripped at one point,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that meant. And I got really confused in places in this movie. Just like I was even confused at the beginning because you hear this great narration to begin it and set everything up. You know, this whole um, the earth is dying and we're on our way to the sun to help it and blah, 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 yada, yada. And I thought, literally until I did research after the movie and just looked at the IMDb credits, that was the doctor. Um, Whatever his name was, the doctor guy.
Harvey?
Yeah, but whatever his doctor name was, I don't remember. I wrote it down somewhere and I can't remember. Um, yeah, the psychiatrist doctor, because he's who we first see. He's the one that's looking at the sun and got the sunglasses on and all that.
Oh,
But we
you're talking about
hear
Searle. Yeah. Yeah.
Searle. Yeah. So we see Searle experiencing the sun through the viewports and all that, but we're hearing supposedly Kappa, the Cillian Murphy character.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that until after because first of all, I did not distinguish their voices that well because I'm just starting it. And um, it really confused me because I was going, if he cares that much and has that passion dialogue, why is he staying aboard the ship to sacrifice himself? And if he is, why is he acting so weird with the blisters and the sun? There were so many times in this movie I was going, "What is? I'm not following it, and I feel stupid." Because a lot of it just didn't register for me story-wise. And I don't know if it was because I think, if I remember correctly, in the narration, he said something about we've just woken up, or we woke up because we're nearing the point in our mission. And I may have imagined that. Because I was trying to explain the fact of why don't these characters, seem to gel or seem to not gel in a very realistic way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You got more interplay and dynamics and subtext to characterizations in Alien, which is a huge key for this movie, than you did in this movie, I think. But wait, I may have to go back on that because I also remember, I started to say Captain America. I also remember Chris
Mace.
Evans' character, Mace, I think, saying 18 months with somebody can drive you crazy. Or something like that, which means they must have been awake for 18 months, which was the distance of the travel from Earth. So I don't know. Maybe I take that back that I didn't hear them say cryo.
Maybe something else it has in common with Event Horizon is that it was cut to pieces and they need to release a restored version. I don't know.
Maybe.
Have you heard about
maybe.
that? I mean, like, apparently there's an Event Horizon version out there now that's much longer and more detailed.
Well, I may give it a try. I'm not a big Event Horizon fan.
Me either. That movie made me feel stupid at times.
Yeah, I love some of the aesthetics in it, but the one big thing I remember from that is that one character literally disappears for like 27 minutes or something, and then suddenly appears.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end, I'm going, where have you been the whole damn?
The only thing I remember is
and 3 deaths. Where are you?
I remember Lawrence Fishburne flying around in a weird chair. Doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Doesn't he have a chair that like floats? I'm like, what the fuck?
I think
maybe I'm thinking of a different movie.
And it's another one of those that. Well, it's another one of those that defies science and physics because it says, "Oh, we don't know. We're just near the event horizon, so we can do whatever we want," which is not right. Yeah. The issue with this one is they make some scientific goofs, in my opinion, along the way.
Well, maybe if you get close to the sun, you become a deranged killer and start murdering people.
Well, I kind of would have liked that better if they had done that kind of... if they had showed people... Because Searle, they kind of show, is kind of slipping. He's kind of venerating or loving the...
he's hypnotized by the sun.
I don't know what to call it.
The corona.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. David, sometimes you just have to let art flow over you. I've been dying to say that. Right. You're looking through notes. You're not even paying attention to me. That was a big Chill reference for all you sleepers out there.
Yep. William Hurt. Also, there's a key.
Altered states.
So anyway, if you're going to tell, because again, like I said, I like the aesthetic of this, but certain things just don't make sense from an overall scientific or physics or whatever viewpoint. I mean, if you have this ginormous, huge shield that can protect your entire ship, then why don't you make the entire ship out of that instead of just the enormous shield?
Instead of
or at least tell us
because
why.
Because it's too expensive, David. We can only afford a half a ship.
And they show you the whole setup of, okay, we're going to drop this bomb, which is also right behind the shield, not the best placement for a huge thermonuclear device the size of a planet. We're going to drop it into the sun, and then we're going to back away and return to Earth. How are you going to do that without the shield that protected you on the way there in the first place?
Fly backwards.
So that made no kind of real... You don't have... No, I mean...
There's thrusters on that shield, David.
I saw that, but the thrusters are going away from you.
I'm making up stuff.
Sending it to the sun.
This is what you would get if I wrote science fiction. I put some thrusters on those shields so that we could back up.
Right. But the ship is so long. Again, the key to that, it reminded me a lot of Discovery from 2001. It looked a lot like, actually, this movie. A big key for me for this movie was 2010.
Oh yeah.
The one where the second mission to Jupiter, and they encounter the Discovery. They have to go aboard the Discovery and try to, bring Hal back to life to see if together both ships can somehow complete the mission. Which is, just like this movie.
I haven't seen that movie since it came out.
I actually like that movie. Some people don't, and it has its own kind of some physics issues, but overall not. And I think it's a pretty decent, sequel. Nothing. It's impossible to say you can do a sequel to Stanley Kubrick, although that's what we just mentioned earlier that Mike Flanagan is attempting. But you better be really, really good to try to do that, just because Kubrick's aesthetic is just so cinematic and so well done. But I think 2010 was trying to do almost the Aliens to Alien kind of thing, where we're taking the source material, but we're kind of giving it a different genre, more of an action genre.
More of a different look. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think, a key to Sunshine would be 2001 and 2010, both. The lengthy ships, the kind of realistic use of pods and modules and doors and all that. Although they only show certain things rotating, meaning the antenna rotate, and because it gives us a cool effect and all that. But the ship itself doesn't rotate. So how do they have any gravity whatsoever? Just kind of weird. It was ironic you said we go to different planets, we go to different solar systems, we do different things in science fiction, but we rarely go to the sun. And I was thinking, kind of the inner space version of that. One of my notes is, so this is a lot like the center to the Journey to the Center of the Earth movie, just in backwards. It's like we've got to burrow in and restart the core of the planet, kind of thing, or stop the lava.
I know. And wouldn't an explosion just kind of break it up?
Yeah.
I mean, but it is gas, though. Isn't the sun gas?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, essentially, what they were talking about was he was talking about almost a molecular level. They would reignite the sun. Again, not great physics, but we kind of go along with it and say, yeah, sure, whatever. You got a big bomb, you're going to make it go. So we kind of believe that. But yeah, it definitely had that journey to the center of the Earth, the core. That kind of thing, where we've got this small enclosed space and we're all going on this mission that ends up being suicidal, sort of thing.
I've got a little bit of background that we skipped, which is kind of ironic considering that we're picking it apart. It took 2.5 years to make. One was one was pre-production, one was the script, and then there was 3 months filming and 3 months post-production. The script went through 35 drafts. So that's why I'm thinking maybe there's an Event Horizon version out there that's got a little more depth to it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, because that surprises me. I mean, and it's not, again, I want to say, it's not that I think this is a terrible movie. I would not classify this as a B movie. I would not classify this as a bad movie. It's just not, I think, up to its potential, and I think it does have some glaring kind of plot holes that are wild.
Which is a shame because of the cast and the visuals,
Yeah, and 30 rewrites or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, physics alone, you have the whole thing with the ship. Not how does it generate gravity if it doesn't? How do they ever explain the fact that it looks like it's 1.5 miles long, but it has a little tiny shield when it's not behind its big shield? So how's it ever going to get away anyway? How's it ever going to escape the sun? Especially if you reburst the sun, it's even brighter and hotter. I did like the airlock bit. That was pretty cool and pretty good. I think I've seen it in one other movie, but I can't remember. Where you essentially shoot yourself across space but through the airlock into another airlock, which was kind of cool. The body freezing kind of thing was kind of cool, although it wouldn't do that. But it's a lot. It would take a lot longer to do that. It would essentially do that. You would become so brittle that you could hit something and break into little pieces, but it wouldn't be that quick. It would take some time, just because of your thermal energy. But I did like that. However, I didn't like the fact that they repressurized and then they suddenly had gravity, and that makes no sense. They're two totally different things. You either float or you can't breathe. So, he pressurizes it, and suddenly they all fall to the. They both fall to the ground, and that wouldn't happen with pressure. Just me. See how these little things throw me off, and I can't enjoy the experience. You don't have that problem. The knife will still cut. Unless the knife doesn't cut that way.
Actually, I was thinking about how the Fox Searchlight logo at the beginning started the film with the sun coming up over the mountain. I thought that was kind of cool.
Loved that.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm not in the horror realm right now. I was kind of just in the visual realm of science fiction.
I like when like like Spielberg, the way he always starts the Indiana Jones movies with the Universal Mountain turning into something. I like that. I like the way this started with the spotlight becoming the sun, and then we're slowly zooming in on it. But again, that magnification is really weird. If you're that much closer, then it would be a lot bigger. So you must have magnification that turns it down, backwards. Reverse binoculars, maybe, or something. But I like his aesthetic. I like the design. I like the controls, the way everything works. It seems very realistic. It works. Even the coolant for the computer, which was a cool idea. I liked all of that, and I like overall his aesthetic. Like you said, it's a very pretty movie in places, but also when it needs to get gritty, it's a very gritty movie. And he uses those Scotch angles and turns the camera or twists or distorts the camera lens.
I like when the explosion goes through the air. The what is that place called? The air garden, I guess they call it. I like when the explosion goes through there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the oxygen
garden.
The hydroponics. Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. And the fact that they, use science and say, hey, we just need to, flash burn it all and hit it with all the oxygen so it'll all burn out. That was cool. And I like to me, it made it it was a credible accident that worked. They had never destroyed antenna 3 and 4 before, so they didn't know that it would reflect back on the ship. But man, that's dangerous. If just a reflection can destroy and rip through your entire ship, again, you need a bigger shield, or just build your damn ship out of the shield material.
Right.
So it doesn't do that. What about character-wise? Did you like the character interaction and the different? The way the characters played with each other, sort of thing?
To an extent. It was kind of weird that Killian and Chris Evans' characters were fighting at the very beginning. I thought that was a little odd. I also thought it was odd that they just basically said, Trey, who is Benedict Wong, is suicidal. It's like they just said, oh, yeah, he's suicidal. Where did that come from?
Right. Yeah. That was one of those moments where I was confused again. And then, okay, so he's suicidal, so we're just going to
have him kill himself.
Leave him in sickbay?
Yeah.
He's just going to hang out? We don't have him under surveillance or sedation or something?
Maybe if we say he's suicidal, it gives credibility to his suicide later in the script. That was a little easy.
Yeah, let's set that up now.
Or not easy.
Foreshadow.
Ridiculous. I do have a note on one of the characters, Harvey, the guy that freezes. They named him
the second in command guy.
What's that?
The comms officer guy?
Yeah.
He's the second in command, right? The coward.
They named
Okay.
him after Harvey Weinstein because Danny and I don't know if it was Alex or not, but Danny Boyle for sure had problems with Harvey Weinstein during Train Spotting. Harvey was wanting him to cut
Right.
stuff out of it, and he wouldn't do it. And they used to fight frequently. So they named this character that they didn't like very
Nice.
much after him.
That's a great
Yeah.
reference. That's cool.
And then,
Well,
what
I
do
have
you
a
think
name one
about
too.
the
No, you go ahead.
subliminal stuff? Did you catch
I
that?
have that in my notes. You like when they first went aboard the Icarus
Mm-hmm.
One, all those flashes of the crew's
Mm-hmm.
face and what that meant. Again, I was confused. I don't know what that meant. I thought it was starting to get supernatural and spooky and
Yeah, it's
alien
very Event
or
Horizon.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, very Event Horizon, and again, didn't really pay off anywhere. I don't know, other than them saying this is, human skin cells or whatever. Which is no, hell no. 8 people do not have enough skin cells to cover every square inch of your spaceship with 3 inches of
Mm-mm.
dust. It's not going to happen.
Well, there's a
But
production note to that is they didn't have enough money for a second ship, so they took the first ship and just covered it in dust to make it look different. I did find
there you
that.
go. Well, they could have done. I mean, we would have bought the fact that they look similar in design. They would have recreated the design as much as they
That's
could
what
to
I
make a new
thought.
one. So they could have just used the same freaking set. So it doesn't,
Right.
it's not an alien ship. It's the same thing.
Hmm.
Although, whatever scientist or whatever at NASA or whatever decided that I'm going to send a ship to the sun and I'm going to name it Icarus was not smart. That's kind of like doomed before you go. Since the whole reason is Icarus flew towards the sun and died, dude. You don't do
That's a
that.
big key right
um,
there. That's a mythological key.
Speaking of
Yeah.
names, yeah, my other one was Pinbacker. I think was the name of the bad
He
guy,
was.
the guy from the other
Uh-huh.
ship. Uh, it reminded me of Pinback from Dark Star from John
That was
Carpenter.
intentional.
One of the that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah, I
know
have a
that.
note. It's in my keys, actually. Pinback was named after Sergeant Pinback from Pinbacker was named after Sergeant Pinback from Dark Star, which was another one of the
Oh,
inspirations
okay.
for the film.
And that's a definite key
Hmm.
there. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
that's funny that you knew the
okay,
name.
cool.
I would have
I
never known that
did
if
not
I'd
know
not
that.
read it. But
I always remember because I thought it was an odd name. Pinback was just an odd
yeah,
name for a
yeah.
character, and I always remembered it from that and the beach ball with
Well, you know
claws.
where I went
That's what I remember
with
from
it. Pinhead. Yeah.
Pinhead.
I was like, oh, he's
Yeah,
gonna be a
of
villain.
course.
He's got a name like Pinhead. Uh,
Yeah, obviously with that one eye
yeah. Did you
staring and
like
all
the
that.
blatant alien reference as they entered the Icarus one, where
What was it?
I don't know, we all get picked off one by an alien or something. He actually
Oh
says
yeah,
that. I was like, that's great.
yeah, because Mace or whomever says we should split up, and he goes, "No, we should all stay together. It's a very bad
Yeah,
idea."
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And there's lots of alien in this. There's lots of alien all the way through it. All the references to even the kind of setup of the characters. They're not working class truck driver stiffs, but they all have their own little issues and problems and don't get along and da 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 and thrust into this. They have to answer a distress call. Once they're on the distress call, they don't know they brought something evil on board, or the alien, the entity, the bad guy on board, and he slowly starts killing them one by one. Well, duh. That sounds like Alien just with the sun.
Hmm. The guy that you probably feel should be fired is named Brian Cox. His name is Brian Cox, and he was the physicist that was the consulting. They called him the science advisor. And
Mm-hmm.
apparently, Killian worked closely with him, and as a result, went from agnostic to atheist. That's a little trivia for you, since there are some references to, you know, whether or
So
not
that means you got less religious, right? Agnostic to atheist means
it means
I wasn't
you
agnostic, so I
completely
was just
don't believe in God.
questioning, but now I'm an
Yeah,
atheist.
yeah.
Right, right.
There were actual space sounds incorporated into the sound design. That's kind of cool.
I could tell that with the distress call was actually sounded like, old style radio waves or space garbage, I guess. Yep.
And it's seven
That's
cast
a cool
members
one.
that are in superhero movies. I just found that note. I thought I'd written it down somewhere.
Yeah.
They said that Boyle downplayed the atheist theme or motif of the movie because he was afraid it would be harder to find an audience for. And it didn't do well at
Well,
all,
so
obviously.
so so let's go there.
Mhm.
So these 8 people go, they're pretty comfortable with their mission, except some of them are having nightmares of, falling into the surface of the sun or whatever. But they get a distress call. It's from the original Icarus. They say, hell no, we're not doing it, some of them. But then the other ones say, but wait, we've got one bomb, but we don't know if it's going to work. What if we had 2 bombs? Oh, cool, then let's do it. They do it, find out the crew obviously something happened to them we don't know, but they essentially were all in like one room and incinerated themselves. So, and they also destroyed their computer, the Icarus One computer, I guess, because the reason they couldn't use the ship is because they couldn't use the mainframe. But while they're there, a guy, not an entity, not an alien, not a space guy, whatever, a guy who's been disfigured and on this ship for 7 years, gets on board the airship, destroys the airlock, and then tries to start killing everybody because he wants them to see God. He wants them to go to heaven.
Yeah, that's his reasoning.
Doesn't he say something about? He says something about go to heaven. I want everybody to go to heaven. So is that what Boyle's talking about downplaying the atheist because nobody argues with him that there is no God, that's not going to happen. All you're going to do is destroy Earth or whatever kind of
That's
side
my
argument,
guess.
I
Yeah.
guess. Huh. Yeah, see, I just got so confused with that last part motivation. I just don't. I mean, if you had had like Searle still there and he was slowly cracking up, and maybe he helped Pinbacker in some way because they're both in this. Oh, the sun is what they're sun worshippers. No, but something that might have helped me a little bit. I just don't understand a lot of
I don't
it.
understand how
Um,
Pinbacker got on the ship.
well, he obviously went through the airlock and then destroyed the
So
airlock
that's what he did.
somehow.
Okay, I was wondering if that was what he did because I mean, and then that's when the explosion happens and it separates them. Okay,
Correct.
because the whole
Correct.
time I was like,
And that happened so out of the blue, which is cool. I like the fact that it just happened for nowhere and nobody, you really didn't see anybody do anything. And I thought um, it was the Benedict Wong character. I thought it was whatever his
Trey.
Trey. Trey. Yeah, I thought it was his character who had, we were already doubting anyway because he was so guilt ridden because he killed the captain. In his mind, that he did it to destroy them all. But that didn't make really any sense. I wasn't understanding it until they suddenly said, no, it's this Pinbacker monster burn guy. Yeah. I just, maybe he needed less suspense and twisted photography in that last part and more like explanation, or maybe a couple more scenes of explaining it. I mean, it had some cool imagery. I like the fact that Michelle Yeoh's character died, clutching the one little leaf that was still alive. Um, I like the fact that Evans, who you thought was a dick the whole movie and was mean to everybody, would even sacrifice himself for the mission.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that. Like I said, I think we've said it. We both like the actors in it and their
Yeah,
performances.
it's got a
It's just
great
that the script in
cast.
places is real wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah, really does. Um, one of the I guess one of the other only last science things I have is the big huge crux of the ending, and that ultra twist was we don't have enough. It's the whole impetus to the last of it. The oxygen farm was destroyed, so we don't have enough oxygen to A, complete the mission, B, definitely get home. So, okay, let's focus on how do we complete the mission. Well, the only way we can do that is if we sacrifice 3 people or whatever she said, so that the other, 3 can live and complete, live long enough to drop the bomb. Then they're going to die because they have no oxygen. And then the big, excuse me, the big reveal thing was the Killian character talking to Icarus, and Icarus says, "No, you're dying." He says, "No, we got it figured out. We can make it to the payload." And the computer goes, "No, with 5 people you can't." He goes, "There's not 5 people, there's 4." And she goes, "No, there's 5." And that's when they realize Pinbacker's on
Hmm.
board,
Yeah, I
right?
like that. But I was still.
Which was a cool
Mm,
twist, but he's in the payload bay, which is this huge cavernous, the size of like 5 football fields, part of the ship, and has oxygen in it. Why don't you just take that oxygen and put it in the rest of the ship, and use a spacesuit when you walk in there and have to, you know, throw the bomb? I mean, there's probably an entire year of oxygen in there, and you don't even do that. I mean, that's just to me. It was really weird that you have this huge resource right here that's just wasting
hmm
oxygen.
My
Actually,
question is, if you're gonna have a scene where they say, "Oh no, there's not 4, there's 5 of us on board," then why didn't they know he was on board from the beginning? Like when you said he went through the airlock and then destroyed it, they should have known someone was aboard.
well, remember though, I think that was part of the dialogue where they were trying to blame it on Trey before. Because remember that started that whole scene was the Mace, the Chris Evans character saying, "Okay, look, it had to be done internally, and we were all on the ship over there." And the Michelle Yeoh character says, Cassie and I were on the command deck,
Hmm.
and so they go, "Okay, well that only leaves Trey," and that's why they all vote to go kill him. Which I thought was a really cool scene. They could have even played it a little bit more, but the fact that they're all taking a vote on the mortality of sacrificing someone for the
Hmm.
mission, which was really cool. So I think they thought it was Trey. So naturally, when they find him dead, they think, "Oh, okay, well then we're all good. There's only 4 of us. We're great." And they don't even think there's that pinback. I mean, I didn't either. It took me by surprise. I was going, "Okay, so this Burn guy lived for 7 freaking years,
On plants.
and then just decided to jump aboard and destroy both ships." I don't know, but maybe it's very Event Horizon-y kind of thing at the end there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that fifth act I wasn't that much into. I thought it was, and not that it was, I'm not against it because it was more horror or scary. It just didn't make a lot of logical sense to me for the end of it. I would, like you said, I would much rather have seen all of them start to crack up, and we don't know how they're going to go crazy and jeopardize the mission.
Hmm.
In that respect, it could have been much more of like The Thing, where I want to come in now. I'm not going to hurt
Right.
anybody.
Right.
Please unlock me. Get me out of sick bay, please. Could have been cool as a possibility. But there you have it. You know, not. I would rate. What would you rank it if you had to say, okay, at 1 out of 10, what are we going to rank the Sunshine?
Mm, I would probably give it a 6 or a 7.
Hmm, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd probably go lower. For performances, I'd probably end up with a 4 or 5. But that's just me. I love my science fiction.
hmm
So
I mean, some of the science fiction stuff doesn't register with me because I don't know the physics of it. So most of that would be based on visuals and the
Storytelling.
casting and I don't know, maybe the flow
Hmm.
of art over me.
Well, and
I don't know.
you're so you're so analytical. Oh man.
Uh,
Uh, but I remember, and I'll have to go back because I've only seen 28 Days Later like
oh, it's
once.
great.
I've only seen Slumdog Millionaire once, but he seems to change his aesthetic with each movie too. I don't think you would think that the same director directed all those and Trainspotting
Tw-
unless you knew him.
28 Days Later is real gritty, and there's a lot of handheld like Blair Witch, but it's not as annoying as Blair Witch.
Okay.
Because, like, I mean, it was the first fast zombie movie. So he creates that kinetic or frenetic energy with shaky cam and running a lot.
Right. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
But yeah, I love that movie. I like the sequel to it too, in particular, like the first 10 minutes. That is one of the fastest, most ferocious first 10 minutes of a movie I've ever seen, is in 28 Weeks Later.
See, I haven't seen that movie. That's
Uh,
28 Weeks Later. That's the
it's
sequel,
Robert
right?
Carlyle um, in the beginning. And I mean, it is just one fast chase for like 10 or so minutes. And I mean, it's just slam, bam, you're
Cool.
in that movie. But 28 Days Later is a
Was
better movie. Hmm?
Is Danny Boyle going to make it a trilogy? He's going to do like months
He
later
didn't do the
or
second one.
years later or something?
He,
Oh,
yeah, he
okay.
didn't do the second one. Some Hispanic guy did it. Yeah,
Okay. I did not
but
know that.
I have heard they're going to do a third one. So
Well, they should bring back the master and let him do it then, since he did it.
yeah,
Um, cool. So I think that's we overall would I don't know if I would recommend. I would recommend it. It's still an okay science fiction film. It's okay. It's still got great performances and aesthetic, but
it's better
just
than Galaxy of Terror, which
yes,
I
yes, it is.
still
And the
love in
green
its own
slime.
way. Um, I have a
Yeah.
couple more keys that I don't think you'll have. One I haven't even looked at, but I'll put it in the show links for people to see. Apparently,
Mm,
Lincoln Park has a video called Leave Out All the Rest, and it's the same concept as this movie. It may even incorporate scenes, I
really?
don't know. So that's
Okay.
a music key. And then a literary key that you may be familiar with that I am not is a story by Clark Ashton Smith called oh, it's called Phoenix, and it came out in
Hmm.
1953, and it is apparently the similar story about a dying son.
Well, one we haven't mentioned. I'm unfamiliar with that, but I'm going to write that down.
And you know,
Okay.
Clark Ashton Smith is up
One?
there with some of those other writers we talk about, like Theodore Sturgeon and the classics.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that's probably a pretty good story.
Cool. We'll have to look that one. One we did mention, or we just barely mentioned earlier. I know in researching was an inspiration for this was Solaris,
Correct.
which was the Russian film, which Solaris makes you think that it's going to be similar to the sun or about the sun, but it's really not. All it is a really, really, really 60s inspired trippy space station story. Um, so I'm not sure of the exact key references to that, other than it's a, a small crew in a confined space, and we think they might be going crazy. That might be the key. The storytelling is not similar at all, and um,
Oh,
it has nothing to do with the sun.
maybe I may have gotten confused. Isn't there a Solaris directed by Soderbergh with George Clooney in it?
Yeah,
Is that called Sunshine or Solaris?
that's called Solaris.
Okay, because the one that you're referring to in 1972 is the
The original,
one that Boyle's
the Russian.
influenced by.
Yeah, the Russian
Okay,
one.
all right.
Well, it's got a very. I can understand him saying he was influenced by it from the aesthetic, the look of the
Hmm.
ship, the design. It's a gritty ship. It's been not taken care of or maintenance, and there's lots of bizarre, trippy, twisted lens work in it, like he does with Pinbacker.
Hmm.
When they start hallucinating and freaking out. Because basically, the story of Solaris is they're in a space station, like an orbital space station, and alien entities from the planet start appearing on the ship as their loved ones. So it makes people freak out and go crazy or have so much remorse and missing home so much that they commit suicide or whatever. And it's about them trying to figure out a way to communicate with the aliens so that they stop doing that. And so they reach some kind of understanding or whatever. I do like Soderbergh's version, screenplay wise, better. It's less. It's a little bit more coherent. It's less. Again, the original Russian was like, "Hey man, let's do a really trippy sci-fi movie. It'd be cool." Um, Only say that with a Russian accent, and that's the way they kind of did the original
Vodka.
Solaris. The Clooney version is actually pretty cool. It's got some good stuff to it. From what I remember, I've only seen that one once, so I may have to go back and rewatch that and say, hey, that's better than
Well,
Sunshine or whatever.
it uh, Boyle said it among others, 2001 and Alien were the ones that inspired him. Solaris,
Of course.
2001 and Alien. So I did have that note as well. But that's all I have for keys. You know, we mentioned
Well,
Event
that's the only. I
Horizon and
think the
Altered
only
States.
one. Alter States, Event Horizon, the core. The only other one movie wise I have on my thing is Silent Running. There were places in this that reminded me of
Like The
Silent Running. I
Garden.
think it's mostly the
Hmm.
garden, the Killian character. He's got long hair and he's looks like he's always suffering and doesn't understand if the mission is worth it or not, kind of
Hmm.
thing. So, so there's that. That was a kind of a Silent Running homage. I thought. Cool. Well, look at us. We droned on and got to the end
I
of it,
know.
and there we
And we
are.
haven't really discussed with our listeners that we are kind of wrapping the show up for this season.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided we're
Yes.
going to do this on kind of a seasonal thing, and this is our 27th episode. Next week will be
Mm-hmm.
our last episode for the first season. We won't tell you what it's going to be, but it'll be a season finale, and then we will
Mm-hmm.
probably slow down for about a month, and then we'll be back, I believe, in October for season
Mm-hmm.
2 of Johnny Has the Keys.
Yes, and we encourage you guys get in touch with us if there's a movie, a series, or whatever, a book, whatever that you want us to discuss that you have ideas and thoughts about. Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. Do the typicals, please uh, heart us, like us, follow us, uh, email us, all the fun stuff. Because that's why we do this, is for you guys to tell us you love us. No, but we do this for all of the fellow geeks out there who who love the same genres.
And because we're empty inside.
Yes, hollow. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining me again, and I guess we will see you next week for our season finale of Johnny Has the
Sounds like a
Keys.
plan.